Dave Smith shares his story with Tucker Carlson on his transformation from a proud atheist to a believer in God.
Maybe God exists. I knew for a 100% certainty, unlike nothing I've ever known in my life.
But what triggered the change? A hospital room, a moment of panic,
But for the first time, it hit me that, like, something could go wrong.
and a prayer he never imagined praying. After this encounter, Dave didn't remain the same. So let's see how it happened.
Do you find in your life, this is a quiz I give a lot of people, more people you know personally talking about God than you did, say, 10 years ago?
Yes. And I am that person. I mean, I was an atheist 10 years ago.
What happened?
I had my daughter.
Yeah.
That's, as I found God the day my wife delivered our first child, and which is a fairly common experience. I know other people who have had the same thing, were atheists until that moment. And
what changed in you?
so, all right. So it was basically, so I met it's a fairly normal story, but I met my wife and we got engaged, and then we got married. So my wife's like the most amazing chick. She's just great. And I know it's always a thing to say. It's like my wife's better than your wife type thing. But everybody who knows my wife, and I mean you, I've never met your wife, but she is better. And just kidding.
No, I don't hear people compliment their spouses enough, actually. I don't think everyone always says that. I wish people said that more often.
Well, I do. It's not me. She's really just the best.
We gotta pause here and give Dave Smith some credit for honoring his wife in a way that many men don't. You can really feel the sincerity in his voice, like the sound of a man who knows he married right and isn't shy about saying it. And truthfully, that's what we should be doing more often as men, lifting the people up who carry us, especially our wives. Because the Bible tells us in Proverbs 18:22, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So she is your partner and also a blessing straight from heaven. Dave didn't know it then, but that same woman he was praising would become the vessel God used to shake his unbelief at the core by that hospital room incident. And this would change the course of his soul forever. So let's continue.
By the way, I should add, just leading into this story, I had been like a militant atheist when I was younger. I had started to open up my mind a little bit to being like, I was seeing some of the holes in the atheist arguments, but I still was not like a believer in God. And so we were at Lenox Hill Hospital, and this was the first one. This is how it started. Was the anesthesiologist came in to give my wife an epidural, and at Lenox Hill, or at least this guy, they asked me to leave the room, and I'm in the hallway in the maternity ward at Lenox Hill Hospital, and it just hit me. It was like for the first time, I guess I had not really thought about this. I was just so excited to get my family started. But for the first time, it hit me that like something could go wrong and that I could leave here alone. Like something could go wrong, that I could lose the baby. I could lose my wife, and it's totally out of my control. And like, as this started hitting me, I started like really getting emotional. And it's like, I'm out there and I'm crying in the hallway of this maternity ward. And immediately I just started talking to God.
It's one thing to intellectually challenge the idea of God from the safety of a classroom or a podcast, but something entirely different happens when life corners you in a quiet hospital hallway, and suddenly all your arguments feel powerless. Sometimes it takes more than an argument that brings us to faith, but a moment when everything feels fragile, when the weight of reality presses in and you realize you're not in control. That's what happened to Dave, and it's something many of us have faced. You walk into a situation full of hope, but underneath it is all this quiet fear. I mean, what if it goes wrong? And when that fear finally breaks through, you don't reach for philosophy, you reach for something real. Something real. That's when pride gives way to prayer, because your heart knows what your mind tried to deny. What started as a routine moment in a hospital hallway turned into the doorway that led Dave somewhere he never expected, towards the God he used to argue against.
Had you ever prayed before?
No, never once in my life. And it all, like all the things that you're supposed to be doing that you're not doing that well, like I was like, okay, I'll clean this up, I'll call my mom more often, I'll do this thing, and so anyway, so I just started like praying to God, and not just praying, but like negotiating. So anyway, everything was fine with that, but my wife, this was the first of many times, there were a bunch of complications in the pregnancy. Everyone came out okay, thank God, but so I ended up talking to God a lot that day, and then just like, as the days went on.
It's so interesting. It's organic.
Well, that's
a lifetime of not believing, and then
Yes.
You just start
and so
praying.
this is almost like what intellectually, converted me later, was I was like, hey, what the hell was that? I mean, I can't look back and just ignore that. So in the moment when it was really all on the line and out of my control, I wasn't thinking maybe God exists. I knew for a 100% certainty, unlike nothing I've ever known in my life, that not only did I know that God existed, but I knew what he wanted from me.
Now, there's something raw and real about that first time you talk to God. Not in this polished or perfect way, but in desperation, in fear, with honesty. When suddenly everything feels uncertain and suddenly the idea of God isn't this theory, but your lifeline, man, it's wild how your heart can shift in seconds. One moment you're relying on yourself. The next, you're making promises to someone you weren't even sure existed 5 minutes ago. But, that's how it starts for a lot of people. I think it's kind of interesting. He didn't need a crash course in prayer. He already knew what he needed to change, what he should have been doing all along. He knew. But that's what came pouring out in that moment. The truth was always there, and it took a moment of surrender to bring it to the surface. God was already doing something in Dave, and he couldn't unsee it. The complications didn't stop, but neither did the conversations with God. So let's see what happens next.
And look, this is something that people who have found God know, and people who don't believe in God maybe will not accept. But there is something to when you open yourself up like that to God, you find out that he's real. And it's not like he speaks to you or he hallucinates. I don't see a fiery bush and the words of God started talking, but he fills you. When you open yourself like that to it, you get filled by it. And there's no more debate in your mind over whether that's a real phenomenon or not. You're like, and any more than if I were to leave here and someone were to be like, do you believe in Tucker Carlson? And I'd be like, no, I know for certain. I know for a certainty that Tucker Carlson exists.
With him, yeah.
I was just with him. It's like that. And so it was, and it changed my life. And ever since I regularly pray to God. It's something I'm conscious of every single day.
No way.
Every day. And I don't even pray exactly. I don't ask for things ever. I ask for one thing ever from God, which is that my wife and my kids are healthy and safe. It's the only thing I ever pray for. I don't ask for anything. The only other thing that I do is I express gratitude. God, I just say thank you for everything I have.
We do come to a point after all the questions and arguments against the truth that we're battling within where we truly open our hearts to God and ask him for help, and something inside us changes. Then you don't see him as a concept to argue about, but a real one to commune with. He's as real as the person sitting across from you. This is what so many believers experience. It's not just a belief, but a certainty that can't be explained. In the moment that connection was made for Dave, prayer became a natural part of his life. He didn't come to God asking for riches or fame. His eyes were open to what matters. And most of all, he came with gratitude. That's the kind of transformation only God can make. It goes beyond turning you into someone nicer, but changing the very core of who you are. What started as a moment of fear in a hospital hallway became the turning point of Dave's entire life, because he turned into someone greater than himself. Maybe you've been there too. Heck, maybe you're in that place right now, facing something you can't control, and wondering, is God real? Friend, don't wait for the perfect faith, but open the door of your heart like Dave did, and you may be surprised who walks through it. And hey, that's all for this video. If you've ever experienced a moment like this where you just knew God was real, hit that like button, subscribe, and just tell me in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.